We want to take this time to say good evening to go all again. This is the Liberian View. We are discussing the this is the second series on the on Liberians abroad and at home working together for a brighter future. The last time we discussed the importance, the role, we emphasized the role of Liberians in the diaspora. We talk about Liberians at home, we emphasize them. And we also talk about some challenges that Liberians abroad, especially, are facing, and also Liberians are at home. We talked about the poor infrastructure in Liberia. We talked about especially lack of trust, and how well can we close that gap? What can we do to resolve those kind of issues? And we also talked about some political, social structure, or maybe sometimes some it has to do with tribalism and other issues that we think we can all discuss and see how best we can get a buy-in from other organizations, not only in the United States but Liberians in other countries, and us also, especially that we can get a buy-in from Liberians in Liberia. The main purpose here is finding a way to work together for a brighter Liberia instead of being divisive. Because no matter what, we need to work together for the future of our children, even if it is not within our generation, but for our children. And so I am going to take this time also to just quickly add Dr. Caroline. Um, okay, so for today's discussion, we have our own Mr. David Golowu Jr. He is a resident of North Carolina. Current occupation, he's a biomedical engineer. Mr. David, you can say hi to everyone. We also have on our panel our own Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd. We have the Honorable Winfred Russell, former Brooklyn Park City Council member, and we have our own Dr. Caroline Davis. For the purpose of this discussion, I will just go around and ask our panelists to kindly just briefly take 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, to introduce themselves, what I didn't say about them, and also let us know, especially those in Liberia listening, those in the diaspora listening, what this topic really meant to them. As we stated from the beginning, as I stated, this is the second series, and our focus is how can we practicalize this, practicalize it the best way possible, and see the best way how we as Liberians can work together amidst the challenges that we have. And so I will go quickly to our own first Honorable Winfred Russell, who will tell us a little bit about himself and then what this topic means to him. Honorable Russell, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucy. And it's great to be in the company with prominent sons and daughters of Liberia. I'm greatly honored to be a part of this conversation. My name is Winfred Russell. I live in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. As Lucy said a few minutes ago, I was a city council member here. I served one term on the Brooklyn Park City Council, representing the West District. And in the West District of Brooklyn Park is where majority of Liberian immigrants live. It's a pretty thriving community, I must add. For those of you who may not have been here, or you've heard a lot about Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Brooklyn Park is a thriving, very active, thriving community where there are a lot of Liberians, residents, and Liberian business owners as well. This topic is very important to me, and it is something that we talked about and that inspired me. That have kept my juice running and kept my creativity going. Is about how we can work together to promote Liberia and ensure a brighter future for the generation that is coming behind us. I've done a lot of work in the public health space. I worked on Ebola in Liberia as one of the response managers, leading a team in southeast Minnesota, and in southeast Liberia,
Southeast here.
southeastern Liberia, and here in Minnesota, I've been leading a COVID-19 response project for the state of Minnesota, working primarily with people of color and the BIPOC community group. So public health is my team, and I like to see us really promote and develop the public health sector of Liberia. So healthcare is critically important, and I will talk more about that as we move forward in this conversation. So once again, it's a great being here. It's a wonderful opportunity. Thanks again, Lucy, for inviting me, and it's awesome to be a part of this panel and meeting the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll move quickly to our own Dr. Caroline Davis. As you know, she's been here, but just say something about yourself, because we know that every day, every month, or bi-monthly, we usually get new people watching, and it's important for others to know who we are, what we do, and why are we here. Dr. Caroline, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks again for having me. I'd just like to ask if the panelists, if you're not speaking, to just mute your mic, because there's distortion going on in the background. And so let's just try to correct that. I am Dr. Caroline Broplet Davis. I am an educator and a psychologist, and I have worked in uh, three different continents in the field of education and in counseling. Um, but those, I feel like those things don't define me. I like to define myself as with the fact that I'm a woman of God. I'm a person of faith, and I believe that anything is possible with the help of God on our side. Anything is possible that we put our minds to. Others have done it, and I believe we can do it. I live in the United States, but my mind and my heart and my every being of me is in Liberia. I've always said this: home is where the heart is. My heart is in Liberia. I'm grateful that the Lord afforded me the opportunity to come to the United States to further my education, um, and to prepare me for a time such as this. And so my heart is in Liberia, and like the exiles that were in Babylon, you know, when I hear about the things that are going on in Liberia, my heart is heavy, my heart is saddened. But I know that as Liberians, we are blessed people. And I know that with God on our side, we can work together to rebuild our nation and to develop our nation. Not, I really want to believe that we that are talking, we on this, those of us that are on this panel, we want to be a part of that brighter future that we are talking about. And we want our children and children's children to be a part of that. So I'm glad about this topic, and I can't wait to hear what all the discussion that we are going to have and how we can work together to develop our beloved Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're here to build bridges and provide opportunities. So we hope you'll be listening to us. So we'll move quickly to our own Mr. David Gullowo Jr. You're muted. You're muted, David. Okay.
I don't know. Sorry for that. Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry for that. My name is David Gold Jr. Currently reside in North Carolina. I am employed in the pharmaceutical business as a biomedical engineer. Um, I served in that capacity for the last 8 to 10 years. And I'm happy to be in the midst
I
of.
don't know what's. I'm sorry, David. I don't know what's going on, but you're not that clear.
Okay, do you hear me now? Probably got a good
Yes.
signal. So I'm happy to be in the midst of esteemed Liberians. To share the same stage is an honor for me. Like I said, I work in the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm happy to be part of the discussion, discuss how we can um, find gaps and mitigate those gaps to help empower the Liberian diaspora and to help solve problems at home. Because the diaspora in every country is important. Every nation that has been once a third world country that is now a first world country, the diaspora was very vital in bridging the gap. So I'm happy to
Yeah.
be part of this conversation. And thank you.
Yeah, David, I'm so sorry, but I think why we will give the floor to our own Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd, we really ask that you work on your mic because everything you say is so important, and others really want to hear it.
Okay.
Okay. Having said that, we'll move to Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd to just introduce himself and then state the importance of this particular topic. How does it relate to him? Dr. Lloyd, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Kia. I want to say greetings to all of you who are part of the panelists on the panelist team tonight. I just want to say greetings to all of you. Um, I'm Reverend Dr. J. Edwin Lord Jr. I'm the senior pastor of the Whosoever Will Christian Church here in Bellsville, Maryland, and I serve in various capacities. I help. With social services in the area. I also provide mental health services for the U.S. Army. One of the functions I do. Also, I serve as the regional director for ministry for the Christian Church Capital area uh, in this region. Um, I'm also very passionate about this topic because I recently have been appointed as the delegate from Maryland on the Refugee Congress of the USA. So these issues are very, very crucial to the work I do, and I'm very passionate about uh, um, how we can contribute to the development of our nation. Given the fact that we are Liberians and Liberia is where we receive our foundation or our foundational education. So it's important that we try to seek avenues through which we can contribute or give back to our nation because it has contributed a whole lot to who we are today. When it comes to the diaspora contribution to Liberia, which we will be diving into as we move forward today, we cannot, downplay the potential of Liberians in a diaspora to basically advance the development in Liberia. But how we are welcome in Liberia is very important to the influence that we can have. We hope as we move forward, we will discuss the potential of how Liberia and the Liberian government and those in the diaspora, including especially Liberian government officials, how can they harness upon the intellectual capacity of members of the Liberian diaspora, including utilizing a platform that will create strategic planning and strategic partnership to encourage the entrepreneurial opportunities or members of the Liberian diaspora. So the various issues and topics we'll be going into today, and these are topics that are very very interesting to me because with collaboration, harnessing the human capital development of our nation, we can do a whole lot to change the dynamics on the ground today. So by sitting afar and criticizing, or in simple terms, by sitting afar and throwing rocks will not help because we are part and parcel stakeholders to the situations in Liberia. So I'm very happy that I'm part of this discussion. And I'm very happy that I can contribute in a meaningful way to this discussion, which we hope will be able to have lasting effect on the relationship of the diaspora and Liberian government moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much. I know that we stated before the introduction, we talked about this is the second series. We had the first, and we emphasized the role of the diaspora. We also talked about the role of Liberians at home and then the challenges we're facing. So we're going to give our speakers 5 to 10 minutes each to talk about some of the challenges. How can we practicalize it? What are some of the things that we can do differently amidst our political differences? The only country we have is Liberia, so we must work together. And, if you look at other countries, you look at Ghanaians, you look at the Nigerians, they are working together. They have differences. They have tribal issues. Why not? So we can do the same thing. So the purpose that we are here today, you can ask your question, you can share this discussion. We are here to build bridges and then create opportunities for discussion and practicalize those opportunities and have a buy-in from Liberians at home and abroad. Having said that, I will give the Honorable Winfred Russell the first panelist to start the discussion. And so the floor is yours, Honorable Russell.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Lucy. I was just in Liberia. I was in Liberia for the first round of the presidential and legislative elections, and my eye is high. Is how underdeveloped Liberia is, and I know we've talked about this a lot, and a lot of people know about all the different challenges because we have relatives back home who are calling us, and we're sending resources back there. But it hit me in sort of profound way on election day on October 10th. It was a holiday, so all of the streets were clear. I mean, there were not a lot of cars, around. I was there observing the elections. So I went to Bon County and then Margibi, and then I was in Montserrat. So after I got done with all of that, I had an opportunity to drive around Monrovia unimpeded. So there were not a lot of traffic. There was no traffic at all. There were hardly any pedestrians around because everybody was out there, right, trying to participate in the election and cast their ballot. And so I was able to drive from the red light, Pinsville red light area, and going through to the Japanese highway, the former.
You're muted. We're not hearing you.
Oh, okay. Was I muted all along, or I just slipped there?
It just slipped.
Okay.
You're fine now.
Okay. So so I had an opportunity to drive around Monrovia on election day, and unimpeded, and I went around the city, all around the city. Me and my friend who I took from here, from the States, who accompanied me to Liberia from the U.S. And I was heartbroken. I was so disappointed. I mean, the profound, challenges that folks are having. So once you take these folks out, I mean, now you can see the true city. I mean, the city is demonstrably dirty. I mean, it's just filthy. I mean, it's just like, how can anyone live here? I mean, the diseases, the sanitation issues. I mean, it's just so profound. I mean, I was really heartbroken and said, okay, what can we do? How can we change this look and the path which the city is currently going? We have to turn this around. I mean, people are getting sick. To have no access to fresh, clean drinking water, even water to use in the homes and other places. How can we be living like this? What sort of resources can we leverage from their side? What sort of expertise can we leverage on this side? I mean, meaning in the diaspora, to help the situation. So those are some of the things that I was thinking about. But first, we have to first identify these talents, within the diaspora, and see how best we can connect the talents to the folks there on the ground to see how we can all work together. But now they have to be willing, and they have to embrace this talent too with an open arm, because the challenges are just, I mean, they're just so profound, and when you look at Monrovia, okay, and you look at Monrovia, and I believe that when you start in Monrovia, it will trickle down to all of the other cities, to Painesville, to Buchanan, to Banga, to Tapata. It's going to trickle to Hopper. It's going to trickle down to all these different cities. But I think that we have more pronounced challenges in Liberia, in Monrovia with the sanitation and all of that, than we have in Hopper and in other places. But I think once we can start there, that would trickle down to these other cities, and they can build on what they have been doing in the past. When you have a city like Monrovia that is on the coast, okay, if you turn around Monrovia, you drive all around Monrovia, there are bodies of water all over the place. There was lagoons, there were swamps, there were rivers, there were the ocean. There was so much water. And Liberia is one of the wettest countries in the world. Even in October when I was there, I mean, it is still raining in Liberia. I mean, lush green, we get a lot of rain there. Why can't we have water? Why can't we provide water to people in Liberia, even in Monrovia? You have about 42%, according to WHO and UNICEF, 42% of the students in schools in Liberia don't have access to fresh, clean drinking water. 90% of people in Liberia as a whole don't have access to clean water. So that increases the diseases that are there. There are a lot of people with typhoid, then the mosquitoes and, everything else. I mean, just all kinds of, diarrhea. I mean, all kinds of things. It's because of the acute sanitation problems that we have there. So, we identify the problem. Now, how do we come up with some sort of solution to address that? And I think we have the expertise in the diaspora, and with the expertise on the ground, we just need to work together. We need folks, we need to challenge the government. And once they can get the political will to try to do something, it's not going to take that much to clean the city. So we need committed, dedicated folks. It's not going to take that much to clean the city. So, I mean, that's where I will start with my comment. I will just start, and within my realm of expertise, it's around, public health, sanitation, hygiene, and all of those things. So we start there first. Monrovia is too dirty and is making its residents sick. We need to change that trajectory.
Thank you so much. Acute sanitation problem. Getting the buy-in of the government. And then, because it's important that, because in America, and you all can attest to that, you can't just be throwing papers and throwing dirt all around in the street or even around your own home. So, as you stated, getting the buy-in of the government to enforce the law, especially if you wash your dishes or you got trash, why would you waste the trash in front of your door? So, I mean, like you stated rightly, the people have to be willing to also buy in the change. Having said that, our next speaker will be Dr. Caroline Davis. We know we're going to come back to you, Winfred, because Dr. Lloyd was asking me, why can you we're going to work on the live chat for the next time we'll do that. So I mean the questions are coming in, but to me when I look at it, if you start cleaning your house first and making sure that you don't put the trash out, that will be also helpful. So we'll give the floor to Dr. Caroline and to her presentation, 5 to 10 minutes, please, everyone. Thank you.
She's muted. There you go.
Is that Councilman Winfred Russell who just spoke?
Yes, Winfred
Okay.
Russell. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for your observation. I have some things that I've written down, but I feel like what is being manifested in the natural in Liberia, what we see in the physical, is how the physical is a manifestation of the spiritual. So what we are seeing in our country, and especially Liberia, a few months ago, when Dr. Alan White was here, he mentioned, and that really struck me in a very uh, uh, odd way, that Liberia is in the Guinness World Book of Record as the Monrovia as the dirtiest city in the world. Now, I know I grew up in Liberia. I went through the war. But I do know, and I was almost in my 30 when I came over here to the United States. I do know we didn't have much in Liberia, but when it came about, when it came to um, cleaning up our environment and making our country presentable, that was something we pay attention to. But I feel all of this that is being manifested in the physical is what is going on in the spiritual over the nation of Liberia. Having said that, I want to say for me, um, we see the challenges, and Councilman Russell, Mr. Russell talked about the tremendous challenges. And yes, the challenges are tremendous. But I feel like um, we need to develop a model, especially Liberian at home and abroad. If we are going to build a brighter future, we need to develop a model that will that we can implement, and also develop a model where we can focus our attention on one thing at a time. When I first started to go back to Liberia to do some work there in 2013, I took my husband with me, and we just saw it's just too much. And so I became overwhelmed, and I was like, oh, how can you do this, how can you do that, you want to do this, you want to do that. But I think that we need to focus our attention on doing different groups doing one thing at a time. So here is what I wrote concerning our nation and building a brighter future for ourselves and for you know um, the generation after us, for generations to come. And I wrote these things down. I said, in order for Liberians to build a brighter future for ourselves and our offspring, we must stop being selfish and truly unite for the common good of our nation. Liberians at home and abroad must collaborate synergistically. We must formulate plan to remedy the situation in Liberia. We are If we are going to build a brighter future for us as Liberians, we must use our professional experiences and our positions to great advantage to embark upon the work of rebuilding our nation. So let's look at, I was talking to someone and I said, this is what we are going to be discussing, someone that I invited. And the person said, well, I hope your discussion, you guys, your discussion is evidence based. And I said, I don't know how, our host or others would steer the discussion, but we have evidence. I mean, Lucy mentioned earlier, she said, look at Ghana, look at Nigeria. People are returning home and they're helping to rebuild or to develop their country. Recently, I happened to be in the summer, I happened to be in Ethiopia twice. And I was just looking at the massive development that's going on in Ethiopia and how they talk about this. Many of the Ethiopians in the diaspora, they are coming and they are helping to develop the nation. They are so proud to be Ethiopians, and they're going back to develop the nation, and they are giving to the government to help. They're getting involved. So we have to look at models that have worked. And for me, there are so many models we can look at, but I want to look at the biblical model. For example, when Israel was in exile, there were two main characters that came up to help with it rebuilding effort in their nation. If you look at Ezra, Ezra was he had a direct link to the Levites who were the priests. So he focused on rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. The temple in Jerusalem was rebuilt before Nehemiah came on the scene to build the wall. And I think the fact that the temple was built, this is a model. The temple was built so people can focus on God. I believe we as Liberians, if we are going to make any progress in our lifetime, if our children and their children's children will make any progress, we have to focus back on the Lord. I believe that. No nation in the world can prosper without God. And we as Liberians, our nation was built on biblical principles. We cannot forget that. So we need to first thing come back to God and seek guidance from Him to rebuild our nation, to develop our nation. So Ezra focused on the temple, but Nehemiah focused on the wall. So as we come together as Liberians, at home and abroad, I believe as we work in synergy, and working in synergy means one person effort is needed for the other person effort to happen. We're working together. We need to work together. We need a model. I was speaking to Lucy earlier today. We need to be strategic. We cannot make this happen by us just talking. Then it would just be talk. So we need to be strategic. We need to look at the needs. We're talking about using our professional experiences and positions. Look at Nehemiah. Nehemiah used his position to gain favor and help from the Lord to go back to his country to rebuild the wall. Some of us Liberians, you who are watching back home, some of you are close to government official. This is not about us, and that's why I said we need to stop being selfish. It's not about us. Those are us who live abroad here by the grace of God. We've been blessed. But why you think we still have interest in Liberia? It's because that's our home. It's not about us. Let's put the country first, not our personal interests. Sadly, our politicians, not just those now, but the ones before, they have always put their personal interests ahead of the nations. And that is wrong. That is wrong. So, Liberians abroad, we need you just as much as you need us. We need to work together synergetically so that we can advance our country, you know. And I said we need to formulate a plan. And before I go to formulating plan, Liberians abroad who are close to government official, or even you work in the government, use your position to bring up a change in Liberia, positive change. Use your positions. Liberians that are here, let's use our experiences and our position. Our councilman, thank God you're here. You know government officials here in this country. We may know people, our representatives, and let us use our experience, professional experiences, and our positions to develop and embark to our advantage. Let's use those experiences and positions to our advantage to embark upon the development of our nation. It is very, very important. We see from the
Okay.
biblical model, they did that. So we have to work together. And I truly believe that as we work together, we will be able to develop the nation. And part of working together is, I told Lucy, we don't just want to be talking or else it's just going to be talk. Let's take our talk and let's turn it into actions. And that's why one of the reasons why I said to Lucy, one of the reasons I want to be on this show, I've never done this before. She got me into it. And thank you so much, Lucy. I think I'm loving it now, you know. But let us take our talks and turn it into action that would be meaningful action. So I would just rest there and for now.
Thank, thank you so much. I can say, and then you've been part of this particular team, Reverend Dr. Edwin Loic and the Test to Aid. We talked about the role and importance of the electoral process and the responsibility of the electorates and the presidential candidates. And I can tell you, at Liberian View, we work with the Flomo Theater, and we came up with a proposal. We did elections, civic education in other counties, Bosserado, Bon County, Bomi area. And then after that, we also worked with the Young Ambassadors for Peace chapter. They have chapters in other countries. We have their leader, Mr. Vani Sharif. We had a Zoom education, civic, how to be an observer, and we had one of our partners who, with including myself, we had a Zoom training where we helped them and educated them. We produced T-shirts, and they were observers. They're giving us very, very good reports. So the discussions that have been heard here, we've implemented a lot, and we can assure our audience with your input, your buy-in, friends of Liberia also, we will practicalize this and we implement it. But seriously, people are asking questions like, how could we approach? How would the flow be? And then they were saying thank you to you and to you all, especially for Honorable Winfred Russell, regarding the acute sanitation issues that we're facing. Because with our health, it's causing a lot of issues. So someone is suggesting that if we want to approach it, that should be number one on the list. Because with healthy people, we create a better country, and they will be restful. They will have drinking water. The health situation will be taken care of. So that was just a suggestion. But having said that, we'll move quickly to our own Mr. David Golowo
Okay.
Jr., who will also have his buy-in, and we said 5 to 10 minutes each. So
Okay.
David, the youngest on this particular platform, the floor is yours.
Okay. Am I audible? I think I
Yes, you
said.
are.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
Good.
you.
All right. I fixed it. Sorry. So yeah, I think the last program was very good, and I really enjoyed speaking with the panelists. I learned a whole lot from their diverse experiences. So, and I think what happened last time we identified issues and we made some suggestions. And I will want to give a little historical background on diaspora relations as far as how it impacts the home country. So, in India back in 1944, a group of 8 industrialists that live abroad, mostly in Europe and some in the US. Went back to India and formed the Bombay Plan. It's an economic uh, plan and industrial development plan. But the government at the time rejected it because they felt they were not going to get um, the glory for it. And these guys went and made a plan, went on the national airways, the media, newspapers, and even wrote a book and published it. And the plan was so good that the rest of India bought into it, and it pressurized uh, the general public. And at the time, Jawaharlal Nehru was the prime minister, and he got shamed for rejecting such a brilliant plan. And today, India is a developed nation because they took that plan, and the plan was rolled out into 5-year plans. So for every 5 years, they took specific topics, specific parts of economic development, infrastructure development. Okay, for this first 5 year, we're going to focus on roads. Next 5 years, we're going to focus on this one, on water, on electricity, on job creation. And India is in the 12th 5 year program. So the Asian tigers all have adopted this program. It was so infectious that other countries around the world adopted it, including Singapore, where one of my favorite leaders of all time, Lee Kuan Yew, who helped eradicate corruption in Singapore, adopted this. And even Rwanda, most recently in 2009, they adopted similar program. They have what we call the Rwanda Development Board. And what the Rwanda Development Board has done is that it has incorporated the expertise, the knowledge, the skill sets of Rwandans in Rwanda and Rwandans from abroad. And they have crafted a great development plan modeled after the ones from Singapore, and similarly to the 5 year plans. And this has helped Rwanda to grow exponentially. And we're talking about trash. Mr. Russell just talked about trash, and I got some ideas from a engineering perspective, and I will elaborate on it. And even right now, as we speak, Kigali is one of the cleanest cities in the world because they came together and they roll out these plans. And Rwanda today has improved so much so that they are growing exponentially in manufacturing, agro processing, tourism, real estate, financial, health, education. Even right now, as we speak, a lot of Liberians have left Liberia and are pursuing bachelor's and master's degrees in Rwanda. Education is very cheap there. So I'm saying this to say that the diaspora is very important. And I just gave an example of the Asian diaspora and the African diaspora. We can emulate the same thing. We can use, like Dr. Davis just said, we have to find a model. We have to identify the issues, and we have to come together. What can we do? How can we do it? Should we? How can we have a concerted effort to go about with this? And one thing Reverend Lloyd said last week that struck a chord in my head was the divisiveness in the Liberian community. We're not united. And I think I made a joke with him last week saying last time saying that maybe that's your forte because you're a reverend. Hopefully you can be instrumental in helping bring us together because it's like Dr. Davis just said, the spirituality is very important. Our country was built on a Christian principle, and we need to be united because divisiveness is one thing that has driven Liberians apart, even at home and abroad. So if we could work on those social aspects, and while we try to incorporate the economic aspects, those will all help us. So I as we go along, I will expand most or more on this because I was given just 10 minutes or 5 minutes, so I don't want to overstay. But I will talk about two things I think we, the diaspora Liberians, can do. One would be foreign direct investment, and the second will be transfer of our knowledgeable skills. But I will go into that a little bit more into depth in my second time around. But just to throw light on what Mr. Russell was talking about for the cleanliness of Liberia, I think to help clean the city, because I have been in Liberia and I drove on Central Street around 2022, the stench was unbearable. I was in my car, I had all the windows rolled up, but the stench was so unbearable all over Monrovia. I got sick to my stomach. I had to run somewhere to use the bathroom because it was just overpowering. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, what in the world? How do you guys live here? And this is the reason why typhoid, malaria is so prevalent. And the government has not really done a great job in fixing the garbage issue. So if we could come out, if this is a project that we could all work on, I think we could have a collaborative effort to really, really push the government to do something about it. And here are a few ideas. So one would be to really, those of us in education, like Dr. Davis, or psychology, counseling, to craft plans to educate the people about cleanliness. We might overlook it, but it means a whole lot. But because Liberia, people just throw trash away without even thinking about it. If we start teaching people that we have to clean our environment, throw trash. Like in Japan, they have every corner. Mr. Russell here is a councilman. He has worked in the city. He might know more about this than I do. But having these little things, encouraging the people, educating the people, having paperwork, TV commercials, radio commercials, educating the people about cleaning your environment. I think back before the war, when I was a little kid, there used to be songs about we grow more food and this and that. Little jingles is sticking your head. Educating the people is one of the ways to do that. And secondly, you got to have legislation. If you throw trash out, if you don't clean your environment, you get penalized. And we could push for legislation for this. I think we are powerful enough. I have seen the diaspora work. So a lot of diaspora, we push Senator Darius Dillon. We supported him with money, and he became he won landslides. So we can do a whole lot from afar. And so there's legislation, education, and the other thing on the technical side, that's where I can lend my expertise, is to help the current government to develop strategies on trash disposal. How can we do that? Like Ethiopia, Dr. Davis just mentioned, has the REPI plant. REPI plant has a waste to energy. They have a waste to energy plant. All the trash in Addis Ababa is collected and it's taken to this plant. There's recycling. You take out what is good, and the rest of it is burned. They burn it in a huge furnace, and the heat from this furnace turns turbines and is used to make electricity. And the electricity from the trash empowers lightens up all of Addis Ababa. If we start doing a project like that in Liberia, it takes tons and tons of trash to turn those turbines. Within a couple of months, Monrovia will be clean. And you just have programs where people collect trash and the trash is taken out because the current wind town has been closed because the trash has overfilled. And we had the Cheeseman plant in Tupmanburg, but they started digging it, but they closed that. So that would be one easy way to get rid of trash, a waste to energy plant. And we Liberians, we can come out and do this. It's a collaborative effort because to do this plant, it might cost about 100 million or $120 million. But Liberians could come together to do this. Brazil has done that. Ethiopia has done that. The guy who did the plan in Ethiopia, he's in Boston. So I've been in contact with him. So there are ways that we could help and clean the city, but one of the easiest way to get rid of trash once and for all would be to have something like a waste to energy plant. So I pause for now, and so somebody else can speak. I think it's Dr.
Yes, thank you so much. This, I mean, wealth and wealth of resources we have here. So, somebody, I mean, I think Dr. Davis was talking about, one of her friends she invited was talking about, you people have to research. I mean, for better word, make sure that you have facts. Now we have facts. If you can, all the speakers, all of you spoke, you have facts and you have models that we can tap in. And so, I mean, the proposal that we're supposed to write, everyone here have written a portion just by speaking. So, and the most interesting thing is people are asking a lot of questions, but just to make sure that we cover ourselves and everyone have an opportunity to contribute, we'll turn it over and we'll turn it over to our own Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd, who will be the next speaker, and then we'll go around, answer some questions, and then we have 5 to 10 minutes more discussion. Reverend Lloyd, the floor is yours, and thank you. I mean, this was very good. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the panelists for the valuable contribution and comments and observations made thus far. Basically, what I gathered is that all the panelists, I think we have a consensus that we definitely need to harness the power of the diaspora to at least address issues or try to work towards ways that are specific to the circumstances in Liberia. So we can direct our resources specifically to those circumstances in Liberia to change them. The diaspora, I want to say in my own term, is a sleeping giant that need to be awakened to be able to change the conditions in Liberia. But before I go forward, let me just try to give you all an international profile, the current international profile or the most recent international profile of Liberia. And that is what the diaspora need to be able to look at to see how we can work towards changing that profile and that perspective, the current international perspective of Liberia. So the Forbes magazine recently described Liberia as among the top 10 poorest countries in the world, and they used the GDP per capita to be able to come up with this conclusion. Liberia has limited resources. Liberia have weak financial sectors. Liberia have unfavorable tax regime. Liberia have economic climates that hinders foreign investment and growth. And Liberia basically has the financial resources and the potential to be able to speed up development in Liberia. Why is that? Because the 2023 report of Liberian GDP was $10.9 billion. The GDP of Liberia was $10.9 billion, according to Forbes magazine in 2023, this year. The population we have now is estimated at 5.4 million people. What are some of the contributing factors, according to the international profile, to poverty in Liberia? One is the violent conflict. The civil war impacted Liberian economic growth drastically because Liberia was one of the fastest growing economies in the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, and the early 70s. Also, a contributing factor to Liberian poverty was the Ebola virus, right? The key contributing factor. Liberia have unstable infrastructure. Liberia has limited services. We just be talking about that. The services for cleaning, health, other basic services that are needed to enhance population growth and population sustainability is non-existent. So we have limited service. Liberia has forced migration. And this one is very key when it comes to the development of forced migration. You have individuals who are in the who should be in the rural area contributing to the agricultural produce in Liberia. They have to forcibly migrate to Monrovia because they have no incentive, no road connection. So they have to be able to find a living. So other than are migrating towards the capital city. So forced migration is one problem we have to look at in the diaspora, how we can stop that. Um, and so that is highly contributing to the food insecurity in Liberia, the forced migration. Also, Liberia earns 100 million and more than 70 million annually from timber and rubber exports. All right, there's something that we need to look at very seriously. Liberia is ranked as one of the poorest and least developed countries in the world by the United Nations. This kind of international profile that Liberia has at this moment. And so it's very important that we look at it and look at this year and be able to harness and wake up this giant, the diaspora giant, to go forth and make the changes in Liberia. Some of the potential Liberia has. One is a favorable climate for agriculture. Honorable Russell just talked about that and talking about the rain. When I was in Liberia in June to bury my father, and I was devastated, by the condition that I saw having been out of the country, not being back to Liberia after 25 years, going back and seeing the Liberia that I cherish and I live and I grew up in. That was very devastating for me, and I felt more obligated to be able to go back and do something. And I was driving through Center Street. I was in my car, my glass round up. I was trying to eat very rapidly on the way to my father's wake. And then we passed through Center Street. The glass was wound up, but I almost threw up. I couldn't eat my food anymore. I just put my food down. I couldn't eat anymore. Just driving through there, not walking. So that tells you the degree of filth that was present at that moment. The city is completely dirty. All right, and so therefore, what can we do as Liberians, given this international profile we have, given the potential of Liberia? All right, and so therefore, it tells us the only problem we have is the lack of the opportunity to actually harness upon our potential, both national and internationally. How can we be able to harness on the intellectual capacity of the diaspora? The diaspora have posed. I got for 4 more minutes. The diaspora have posed a very great opportunity for development in Liberia. As a result of the Civil War, Liberians and traveling abroad for a better life or for refuge have created a group of Liberians that are in an economic block that should be harnessed to be able to change the social economic conditions on the ground. If you look at countries like Israel, you look at countries like Ethiopia, look at countries like Nigeria, and other countries that we can name around the world that have been able to harness the potential of the diaspora to develop Liberia. But the climate for development and the climate for interaction is not favorable. And the Liberian government need to come to be able to realize the importance of the diaspora when it comes to economic development. And when it comes to trade, all right, and Israel and other countries around the world have created, have changed policies favorable to the diaspora, so that the diaspora will be able to bring in direct foreign investment in Liberia, in their countries, and that have caused rapid economic growth. And so, therefore, also Liberia has a favorable climate to harness natural sources of electricity, and as the other panelists have just stated. So how can the diaspora engage with the Liberian government and come into dialogue with the Liberian government to be able to see how we can come in and try to create a rapid change? The Liberian government cannot do it all alone. They need our help, and we want to offer our help in changing the conditions there, so that when we go back home, we'll go into a climate that will be conducive, and that would be a complete opposite to the environment that we live in here in the United States. And so, further before the conclusion of this at this forum, I would love for to work on and propose that we organize what I call the Liberian Diaspora Network. The Liberian Diaspora Network, similar to what the United Nations Forum for Africa Development in tapping upon the African diaspora. So they have the African Diaspora Network that bring together professionals who get together and brainstorm on ways we can change the trajectory of African development in Africa and development in Africa, the financial and everything else. We're going to that. I will come into that further. But we rest here, just giving you a gist on what we can do as members of the diaspora in changing the conditions in Liberia. We cannot sit here and be satisfied. No way. We should be troubling in ourselves when it comes to what is happening. Even in biblical times, as our sister just stated, the Jews were in exile, but they yearned to go back home and build a wall and rebuild the wall of their country. We can have that same yearning within our house to go back and rebuild Liberia to be a country that we can be proud of. And I will rest my case.
Thank you so much. Actually, when you talk about the current international profile of Liberia, I became a little bit teary, because if you're a professional in this country and you're looking for a job with such a profile, how will you get a job? How will you be employed? How would anyone want to, even if you're looking for a grant, you're looking for a scholarship, you won't even get it with this kind of profile. So that's the kind of situation we are in. Let no one tell you anything outside of what we are discussing, even more. So it is about time that we really, really put our tribal, political, any affiliation, put it aside, and let's come together to really, really work and make this happen. If Ghana can do it, look at Ghana today. We can do the same thing. So someone was asking, and this question we would like for Honorable Russell, if you can start addressing it. With such a profile, where does Liberia stand? That's someone where I mean, it's known where Liberia stand, but from your perspective, where does Liberia stand? What can we do differently with such a profile? And then also having all those resources, what can we do differently?
You're breaking in and out there. Thank you, Lucy.
I
I'll
was
just build
breaking
on
in.
what, yeah, in and out there. So, what can Liberia do differently to attract resources? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, one of the things, Brother Lloyd spoke eloquently about some different, strategies that we could employ. So to Dr. Davis. But one of the things I think that is a low-hanging fruit type situation that could generate a lot of income, that could generate and it gave us a lot of exposure to, is embracing tourism. Okay. And I think we take that, for granted. We have a lot of historical, artifacts in Liberia. They have not been properly, preserved. Those things, if we approach them in a sort of a purposeful way, in the way that we can preserve them, renovate or remodel some of those places. You talked about Ghana. Ghana is playing on this the part that it had to play before it became, a nation state in the whole slave trade movement. You have loads and loads of African Americans, either going to Ghana, setting up shop there, buying homes, buying land, and all of that. We have not, and they've been planning this stuff for a long time in a very purposeful but strategic way in going after African Americans. African Americans, we have about 13% of the population of the United States is African American, but they are the wealthiest Black people on the planet, and we have a history with them. We have a connection to them. How are we leveraging those connections How, if you look at, you look in a lot of, I'm from Cardwell. I'm from Upper Cardwell. It's a former Congo settlement. If you look at a lot of those settlements, the right bank and the left bank of the St. Paul, there are a lot of artifacts that we allow some of those buildings that was on stills and all of those things. We didn't preserve those things. I mean, those things we bring in, tourists. You go to Edina in Grand Bassa, as ugly as our history may have been, but it is our history. Okay, how are we leveraging it? Like the Ghanaians, I mean, they're not proud of the fact that they had in some part of it, that at the time that they were sort of like a transit point for sending their African brothers and sisters to the New World, as slaves. But now they turned that narrative around, and they have monetized it, and they're making money off it. Okay, whether we like the Congo people or not, or whatever our love-hate relationship with Congo people. The Congo people gave us the connection to America. That's the historical link to America is through the Congo people, whether you like it or not. Okay, but how are we leveraging that in a positive way to try to push tourism, try to get folks to come and say some of the earliest folks who came in this country? I was in River G, and we went out to some village by the Kavala River, way out in the middle of nowhere. I believe we walked to get there. Okay, there was no car to take us there. But the bank of that Kavala River, there was a statue there that had been placed there since the 1930s. I think whoever the president was at the time, I don't remember that, but whoever the president was at the time went and met with the French administrator, but who were then administering what is now Ivory Coast across the border. And so they met at that point. That statue is still there today. Okay, that's something that people can, even Liberian, even local tourism. I met the recent time I was in Liberia, I met a young woman who and her brother, both of whom were in college. Okay, born and raised and grew up in Monrovia, pretty intelligent. They've never been to Robertsfield before. They've never been to Kakata before. They've never gone beyond Monrovia. So that they talk, there's a market right in there. I know we talked about Patawi and we talked about the surfing, but tourism is a big income earner. So when we talk about how can we generate funds to support some of these initiatives, that's part of what we need to do. I went to Liberia, Costa Rica one time, and I spent $200 to go biking on a single track trail because I do mountain biking. $200. And I can show you pictures. It's nothing compared to what we have in Liberia. But they have the infrastructure in place, and there's nothing. It's just little farm, little road that we use to go on the farm and stuff. Back in Liberia and stuff. That's what we're using the bike on. We have the land, we have the space. We need the leaders with the vision and the political will to do that. So there is so much of our culture, so much of our history that we could leverage and package. And tourists will come. We don't need to we're not trying to attract the tourists from to Las Vegas or go to Bahamas. We're trying to attract the tourists who are, who are adventurous. I went in the middle of nowhere, just like any old village. I was in, Colombia, in June. We went into this village, called Palenque. I mean, it's no different from any other village we see back in Liberia. But I was with a tour group. We paid like $100 each just to go there and pass around and see a little the village and people making coconut candy, and some of the same thing that from Africa they took back to Colombia to do some of the same. I mean, cane juice and all of that sort of stuff. All upriver, they're all around the place. People making cane juice. So that's part of what I think that we can start to do and start thinking about. Is embracing tourism. Get away from this, the Ministry of Information Tourism, Ministry of Information, Culture Affairs and Tourism. That's a relic of the past. Cut that out. Create a standalone tourism ministry or standalone tourism bureau. You go to Ghana, they have it. Ghana has a Ministry of Tourism. Come on, it's not rocket science. Before you go to Tanzania and Namibia and South Africa, and all they all do, bringing in millions and millions and millions of dollars. So that's where I think we can start, or one of the places I think we can start.
Thank you so much. Someone was just mentioning that, and like you said rightly, Congo people is part of our history. And if we want to divorce ourselves, not to talk about it or not to look at those statues and embrace tourism, Congo country or whatever it is, we are that those history are ours. So the person was just saying, the sooner we our mindset, our mind, we can change our mindset that we know that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, some of the expectation that we expected her to do, she didn't do it. So what? She is and will always be the first president, lady president in Africa, the first. So that portion of, let's leave and the person said it rightly. Let's leave what did not happen right. At least pick up some of the good things the person did internationally, and let's embrace that and build on that. That's the only way we'll go forward. So I want to say thank you so much for that statement. I just share it. Okay, so we'll go straight to Dr. Caroline. You can also just talk about the same thing. What can we do to change this kind of international profile? If you're looking for a job and you have your profile that was read, and how can we change that? The mindset. Someone just said that we need to get rid of the tribal thing. We need to embrace ourselves. In Nigeria, I don't know how many thousands of different languages they have, but when they come together, they speak as Nigerian. What is different for Liberians? So the floor is yours, Dr. Davis.
I would just say this very briefly. I agree that we need to get away from this conquer and country. We don't have any time for that. We just love our country. Before Barack Obama came on the scene to be the president of the United States, he said this: there is no red state and there is no blue state. There is the United States of America. There is no conquer. There is no country. There is the Republic of Liberia. And the sooner that we can unite and forget about those, we should not be defined by our tribal background. No, we shouldn't be. We should be defined by the fact that we are Liberians and we love our country, and that is the simple thread that holds us together. So people who still dwelling on this conquer and country and all of that, they have a small mindset. That's just a small mindset. Big mindset talks about solution. The people say small minds talk about people. When you start talking about people being conquer and being country, you have a small mind. We got bigger fish to fry in our country. So let's just drive away from that, because that's not who we are. We love our country. God did not put, it's just like in the US here, when you look at discrimination and people, and as a person of God, sometimes when I think about these things and I prayed about these things, I try to listen to what God is saying. God is a God of beauty. And something I tell my students, what if you had only one color of flowers if we had one color of flowers in the world? Would it be a beautiful world? But we have all these different flowers because that's who God is. God is interested in diversity. He is a diverse God. See? So he didn't make the white and the black and all these people for one person to law it after the other. He made it to beautify the world. God put us in Liberia. We are all Liberians, and that's what we should work together on. Liberians at home and Liberians abroad, we should all work together for the love of our country. Like Lucy said, all the other nations, like Ethiopia, I was watching a documentary when I was there, and they talk about the Big 12, either the Big 12 or the Big 15 development projects that are going on simultaneously in Ethiopia. You got people from all these different backgrounds. They don't care. They are just interested in the fact that they're Ethiopians and they want to develop their country. The Nigerians and the Ghanaians, they are interested in the fact that they are like Ghanaians or Nigerians, and they want to develop the country, because that's when you talk of patriotism, that's what it is. Let us be patriots, and let's focus on what the issues we have in the country. Let's look at solutions and let us work together. Let's take from our vocabulary conquer, country. Yes, conquer has history. The country, they have history. The common thing that thread that weave us together is the fact that we are Liberians, and we should look at that and you know but you know all of us have said a lot of interesting thing, and my thing is, there's some major, like when we're having trainings in my field about how to deal with children, and they talk about the ACE score, adverse early childhood experience of children, and how educators should approach these in the classroom, and how to deal. And I always tell my administrator, I'm a very outspoken person, because I believe that this is something I pray for, and I want to be a voice of truth. So I will tell my superintendent and in my school district and others when they say, so that they try to put the burden on us as educators to know these things, to know how to deal with it, because children are traumatized and this and that. That's why you have the behavior issues and this and that from pre-K to high school and beyond, you know. And I would say to the educator, so there's one missing factor, though, you all are not bringing in. And say, what is it? I say, parents have a role to play. Parents have a role to play. So in Liberia, with all the things that we are talking, and we have great ideas, and God has blessed our nation. God has so tremendously blessed our nations. We have people all around the world that are doing well in high places, that are doing well. And we can put all of our ideas together. But if we don't address the Reverend Lord talk about the sleeping giant, we have a giant in Liberia that will obstruct any form of development. Believe me or not, and mark my words today, if we don't address that giant head on, all of our efforts will be in vain. And that giant is corruption, and corruption in the government. One of the things I believe that we need to do is to hold our government officials accountable for what has been, and what is going on in the country. because we can't do anything. And I will come back to that. I have a question that I wrote down when Mr. Russell was talking about standalone tourism. I want to know more about that. I will come back to it. But we cannot do much in the country without going through the government. And we have people in strategic areas. When you go to them with a proposal for development in the country, the first thought is, what is in this for me? We have had years of people, Liberians here, and that's why I'm hoping that from this Liberian view, we can form what Dr. Lloyd talked about, you know, uh, I wrote that down. I guess Liberia, a network of diaspora. We need to form something like that. And we Liberians diaspora, not just in the U.S. but in Europe, in Asia, and other parts of Africa. Let's connect, and that's what I was saying. Let's connect, so that we can come together. First of all, we have to, if our government official know that, and I'm not speaking against any particular regime, because I said the last time, corruption is not just now. This has been going on. It's just that corruption is bolder than it used to be. All right. But we have to address this issue. Otherwise, we are just singing empty songs. Otherwise, our effort will not be appreciated and it will not go far. When you got people in government that does whatever and there is no accountability. So how can we do all these marvelous things that we are talking about when we can't hold people accountable? I don't know if it was this group that I explained to, that there is a I guess 7 point something billion dollars a project that was developed by a South Korean professor for Liberia, how to develop the country, and Liberia could get the money through the Asian Pacific project or something. But and the guy developed it, he has everything written down, how to approach it, how to do it, what the steps are. He has everything comprehensive. He has it.
Okay.
Well, he gave it to this young Liberian who was displaced uh, um, in South Korea and were going to school there. But he kept his connection with the professor. And so he and the professor had been conversing, and the professor sent that proposal to take to the government so the government can tap into that to develop Liberia. When that proposal went, when the young fellow took the proposal to the point person for such a program, a development in our country, the first thing the person asked was, so what's in it for me? We need to get away from that. If government
Okay.
officials are looking for what's in it for them, we still have some serious problem. Many years ago, I don't know whether it was during Ellen regime or prior to hers. I think it was during Ellen's regime. Some of us educators, not all around the U.S., we had a little thing going, and we wanted to develop education in our country to see how we can, help the education system, because the system is broken down. I told you all before, I got nephews that have college degree and cannot write one single paragraph right without some kind of grammatical spelling error, all of that. So we came together, educators, we came together and we said, first of all, we need to do a needs assessment of our system to see how we can help our people. So we sent the information, we drew up some questions, and all we asked the Ministry of Education to do was to just fill in those questions and send it back to us. It's been over 10 years. That hasn't been done. Because guess what? There was nothing in it for the point person that was there. So yes, we want to develop our nation. And I think we should all do that, and we can do that. There is the possibility to do that. But how can we do it when we have people in office that don't feel as passionate as we do? How can we do that when we have people in office that can do whatever without any accountability? How can we do that? So while we are
Okay.
trying to create this model, while we are trying to find solution to our problems in Liberia, that is a huge problem for us. And we,
Okay.
as Liberian abroad and and at home, we need to come together to address it and be the voice for change in our country.
Okay.
And finally, I would ask Mr. Russell, you talk about standalone tourism. Yes, we can. Could you please explain that? Because I don't know. Because when you were talking about the tourism aspect of development in Liberia, that is so wonderful for us to do. But then
Yeah.
again, who benefits from it? It's all about who benefits. Is it individuals that are benefiting, or is it the entire country? So could you talk about the standalone? Because I don't know whether it means that we bypass the government and create something, privatize something. I don't know. So could you please
Okay.
elaborate on that?
But before you come in, Honorable Russell,
We can't hear you, Lucy.
no, I was just saying that before you come in, Honorable Russell, I just want to point to the time we have 30 minutes left for all the other speakers. I think you can elaborate on that when we are done with Reverend Lloyd and Dave and Mr. David Golowo. Well, once we're done with that, you can add that in your in the next discussion. However, uh, I know that I don't know who suggested regarding Liberian Diaspora Network. That organization already exists. So for now, we will sit and outside of this meeting and see what we need to do. But for the Liberian view, we have others that someone was just saying, and one of my colleagues were talking about grants that Liberia get, monies that Liberia get from the IMF and all those other organizations. They're researching which funding Liberia government gets, and so we can also tap into that to say, these are things that we want to do for Liberia. These are things that are happening. So there are a lot of discussion we're going to do outside of here and all the suggestions, because I think we have a lot to put together. And I agree strongly with Dr. Rain Lloyd. Someone was saying when you said we are the sleeping giant. If we put our house in order, most of these monies that go directly to the government will go through other organizations that will do the work. So let's just, when we get out of here, we can have a separate meeting for that. But having said that, I want to go quickly to David um, to talk about what do you think we can do? And then also Dr. Davis said it. The other giant we have is giant of corruption, and we need to heal that. And there are a lot of ways that we can. It's not only us on this platform, but we have other friends of Liberia in high places that are waiting to work with us, to work with this particular team. So, Mr. David, I mean, Mr. Golowo, the floor is yours. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let me get into it real quick, since you're short on time. So, like I said earlier, two things I identified that the diaspora could do to really help. The first is foreign direct investment, and the second is transfer of knowledge or knowledgeable skills. But I'll talk only on foreign direct investment, since we don't have a lot of time. So before foreign direct investment could be successful in Liberia, I think the government needs to improve on a few things, like enforcing the Liberianization policy, because we do see that our economy is not even owned by Liberians. Our president once said Liberians should not be spectators in their own economy, but we're not even on the field anymore. We're way outside the field listening to the commentary. So we need to fix that. Um, depending on who wins this election, we need to push the government to stay true to the Liberianization policy, because we cannot have our country where Lebanese, Indians, they control every aspect of our economy, even the exchange rates. They control importation, exportation, and you name it, they own it. So we need to change it. So I think the diaspora, we have the financial wherewithal, the knowledge, the skills that we can tap. We can push the government to make this a reality. And the second thing would be to improve the ease of doing business. I think Dr. Davis mentioned it briefly. Doing business is so hard because you go to get registered or you carry a plan in Liberia, and then the corruption, people want you to pay them, and how are you going to do a business? Like I said some time ago, I think I mentioned this. We have a farm, and we try to get a $250,000 loan, and the loan officer was like, "Oh, you got to give me $25,000 to process your loan." If I'm trying to get a $250,000 loan, give you 25,000. How much would I have left? I got overhead. So these are things that we need to push if we are going to come up with a concerted effort as the diaspora, or however way we're going to come out. These are things that we need to impress upon the legislature to really improve. That way, it's going to help foreign direct investment. I always see Liberia, people always talk, oh, our donors, oh, the foreign people. We always defer to foreigners. But Liberians, we ourselves can mantle and really do things in our country. So I want to just address the lowest hanging fruit. I think Mr. Russell talked about it earlier. It's agriculture. I'm in agriculture. I'm doing some other businesses, but agriculture is dear to me. My dad and I, we are in agriculture. We have cassava and pepper farms in Bone County. Now, let's say, for example, and I'm giving these ideas out so other diaspora Liberians can listen to it and see opportunities that they can tap into. So, like for example, like a 10-acre pepper farm. A 10-acre pepper farm, you probably have 3 harvests a year. And the calculations that we did for a 10-acre, because our pilot farm was 10 acres, the harvest, you would probably earn about 25 to 30,000 United States dollars per harvest. So you're talking about anywhere from $60,000 to $70,000 within a year. So if Liberians want to get into that, the pepper, cassava, potato, those are easy things. And you could have like cassava, you could have, depending on the variety, you could have 2 to 3 harvests a year. The same with pepper, potatoes, and they sell very, very well. But one thing that we could do is, if you decide to go into this, you got to study it. I'm here. I could be a resource. People could ask me my experience. I could, give my experience to people. I don't mean people with information. But we could prevent this whole thing of importing food that we can grow. Right now, we import pepper, cassava, plantain, bananas from Guinea. That's a disgrace. They have the same soil profile as Guinea, as Ivory Coast, as Sierra Leone, but we go to them. I had a guy who was a USAID project came up a few years ago, and we tried to get the project for our cassava farm, but another guy intercepted. Yeah, he got it, but he lied. He didn't have cassava farm. At the end of the day, he started importing cassava from Sierra Leone, and he ran out. And he finally came up to us, "Oh, I want to buy from you." So this is, I've been at red light and seen truck loads of pepper, local foods that we could grow. So we really need, the diaspora Liberians can tap into this. Local Liberians can get back to the soil, as President Doe used to say, and start cultivating and processing these easy to grow plants. A second opportunity would be local manufacturing of machinery. It's so cheap. The raw materials are there. a Liberian in the diaspora or in Liberia could join forces with other local manufacturers and make locally produced tools. Like one of the processes that we used was made by a local Liberian, $900 with all the raw materials and fees and everything. So if you could do something like that, making the BWI produces a lot of technicians that produce tools, MVTC. They got schools across the country. You could tap into this, form your own little company, and create or fabricate these machinery and sell them out to local farmers, because we have to deviate from the subsistence farming and the cutlasses. So we have semi-automatic machines. Like the processes that I have are semi-automatic. We use a Robin generator to grind our cassava. And the third company a Liberian could form, preservation year round, like out of season, like for example, mango plums. Outside February, March, April, you don't have mango plums in Liberia. But if you do have preservation, you do a small little building, refrigerated. They got technicians in Liberia that could do refrigeration on a little plant. You could have year round air. It's air controlled, and you could collect plums, preserve it, and sell it year round. That's another business opportunity. And all these business opportunities I'm talking about, I'm involved with some of them, and I'm planning on expanding to other more. Transportation, logistics. If you go to Nimba County, sometimes the people have so much food, plantains. And Nimba is one of the areas that really has not failed, but they do produce a lot of plantains. You could transport them easily back and forth to Monrovia. You got the Monrovia-Ganta Highway. You have a little trucking company, and it's easy money making. So diaspora Liberians, these are opportunities that you could tap in, because we're saying agriculture. Is not only going there and having a hole and digging the soil to plant, but these are other auxiliaries, other businesses that you can tap into. And so one thing I would say to conclude is for foreign direct investment, we should consider individual investment, collaborative investment. I think Ms. Kia and I will talk about it behind the scenes, where a group of Liberians will come together, come up with an idea. Can we form a credit union? Can we form a small company doing one of these things that I just talked about? Can we form a logistic company? Pool our resources. Yeah, let's buy several trucks and haul food back and forth across the country. Or another thing we could look at is the PPP. The government has control over the natural resources in the country. I think it's time now we engage the government to involve the private sector to have these PPP arrangements. I know they do exist, but to improve on it, because there's no reason why we will be major producers of rubber, but all the rubber leaves Liberia. Why can't we not have primary processing, which is processing of the raw rubber, secondary processing, tertiary, quaternary manufacturing? We could do all those in Liberia, where we make have plates for tires, plastic products, gloves, machines. You'll be surprised the raw latex that is collected at Firestone. There are machines in China that you could just take and put the raw latex in it, add chemicals to it, process it, and then make gloves. They got the machines are right there. The hands. I forgot the name of it, but you pour in the latex, and it goes into that machine, and it comes out with your gloves, and you color it, and you sell it right in Liberia. Those machines are very cheap. Some of them you can find some for $100,000. Some of them you can find for $5 million. So these things are not that hard. Even like for cassava processing. Cassava process is where you go from the beginning of the processing line, you put the raw cassava in the machine, it comes out as gari or starch. You got those in China. Cheap. Do research. I've done my research. I could be a resource to tell people, look, if you want to do this, this is how you can do it. These are companies that you can contact. Like even like we could also not only sell locally, but also sell stuff internationally. Like for example, pepper. Pepper is using this in spice in making colognes. Liberia has a good soil. We could grow jalapeno pepper, different types of pepper, sell to restaurant industries in the United States and other places in the world. The cassava is used for in pharmaceutical, the pharmaceutical where I work as excipients for drugs, as starch in making clothes. So we got the soil, but we are not taking advantage of these things. So I will stop here for now, but the low hanging fruit is agriculture. Is Liberians in the diaspora. Agriculture does not only mean going on the farm to make the farm, but you can have so many other companies from that one agricultural product. You have so many other companies that you can invest in locally. You can even sit in the US. And like right now, everything that I do is I do it remotely. As far as my business in Liberia, I use technology and check on it, and so I could be a resource to people could tap into that, and I could give a lot of consult with me, and I could give a lot of advice on that. So I'll stop for now.
Okay. Thank you so much. We talked about some credit union, I mean, not credit union, but some investment, and we'll share with you all later on this particular platform. We have like 16 more minutes. So we're gonna go quickly to, I mean, thank you so much for sharing knowledge. And I know that those who are listening, you've gained a lot. And as you listen, share. We appreciate it. So we'll go quickly to Reverend Dr. Lloyd that will talk for 5 minutes, and each and every one of us we have like a minute or two each just to wrap and giving you like your closing point. Dr. Lloyd, the floor is yours. You have 2 to 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
It's muted.
You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will do my best to condense my comments in 2 to 3 minutes as much as possible. Looking at, I know the question on the floor was concerning how can we change the current profile of Liberia. And basically, we need to focus on the social economic sectors of our country to capitalize on that. One thing we can do basically is to reduce the imbalance of trade. Because I have economic background. My undergraduates in economics. The economics variables and economic plan in moving Liberian forward is, I'm very much focused on that. That's the only way we can move forward. So we can deal with the issue with the imbalance of trade. I basically like to deal with statistics. Okay, we have Liberia export versus imports, right? We have the IMF given us 2017 report. This is not recent, but it's kind of in a recent area. Export of Liberia export somewhat to the amount of $260 million. $260 million export. Imports $1.6 billion. Imports. So that's a serious disparity. So therefore, you will have poverty because you are importing far more than what you are exporting. So we need to deal on the export sector of Liberia and see how we can do a research and see whether we can emphasize on those crops that are on high demand on the international market and see what we can do mass production of those crops so we can be able to export. Rubber, the rubber export in Liberia, the second largest rubber plantation in the world, and the export of rubber in Liberia is high when it comes to the comparison with other countries and other rubber producing countries, but the revenue is not coming directly to the Liberian government. So again, we count that as part of the export. All right, I know it's factor in here basically, but the export that comes from Liberian economic sector in particular it's very minute. All right, so how can we change that? Cocoa is on high demand on the world market. Rubber is also high demand in the world market. The world market. How Liberian government can be able to tap into the rubber industry in Liberia, and switch into manufacturing, and then create a market in Africa to consume the produce from that manufacturing. Those are the things that the Commerce Minister should be thinking about. All right. Also, another area is that with the remittance, remittance is one of the major source of livelihood for Liberian families. All right, it helps to boost consumer spending in Liberia. So the remittance to Liberia, and that give you a brief calculation. The remittance to Liberia as of 2022, right, was $346.24 million that went to Liberia, the remittance. So, and when I was in Ivory Coast during the war, right, the Ivorian government realized the amount of remittance that were coming to Ivory Coast through the Liberian refugees, and what they did, they capitalized on that. You know what they did? When you receive currency from the U.S., you know what they do? They will give you maybe, I think, a third of it in U.S. dollar, and the rest they will give it in Ivorian CFA, right? And so Liberian government can do the same, tap on the remittance, right? But we have to be earnest, straightforward in that process. They cannot be corrupt in it. You see what? Because remittance, you're having $346.24 million coming into the economy, and it's not benefiting the economy. That's a serious problem. All right, because it goes into the hands of the foreign businessmen, and then the foreign businessmen take it and take it out of the country. One of the biggest problems we had also to change the economic profile is capital flight. We need to regulate that. I was just watching a documentary on TV last night, and with the American customs system, you're not allowed to leave this country with more than $10,000 cash. They try to curtail that capital flight because you know how important it is to the economy. Anybody can take any amount of money out of Liberia, especially the foreigners. And number three, how can we improve that? Two, what can we do is that the Liberian government should be able to tap on the diaspora to invest in Liberia to create jobs. So we're talking about building Liberian businesses, we're talking about Liberianization, right? Building Liberian businesses. The people on the ground do not have the capital because of the situation in the economy. So get the members of the diaspora who have a strong financial background and foundation, right, to go in and invest in Liberia. That way, automatically boost the Liberian business sector. And you have a lot of Liberian businesses flourishing more than the foreign businesses in Liberia. These are simple steps, simple basic economic steps that can be taken that can revive that country in 5 years with a sound economic policy. It's not hard. We only have 5.4 million people in Liberia. It's not difficult. All right, so it can be done, and we have vast resources that can be done. So basically, my suggestion here is to basically work on the import-export sector, do a balance of trade, focus on industrialization and manufacturing. All right, the Liberianization should be emphasized, but the focus now should be on the diaspora, bringing in that foreign investment in Liberia. Have and be able to create impose laws that would be favorable to the diaspora. And believe me, you will see how people will flock to Liberia once the investment opportunity is there. They will flock to Liberia, and the money they have in the banks here, they will transfer it to Liberia. The statistics have shown that the amount of savings Liberia have in the United States is over $2.7 billion. Can you imagine? So can you imagine the economic potential that we have? But there's no will, there's no knowledge, there's no ability to harness the intellectual power of the Liberian diaspora to be able to focus that on the group of the Liberian government. And I will end there for this moment. But these are the things that we can do, and it can transform our nation, in no time. But we have to work together. The Liberian government have to exercise the will and the power to dialogue with the diaspora and tap upon the potential of the diaspora. Because that's the only savior of Liberia now, the diaspora. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, Mr. Trokon Kane, thank you so much for your comment here. He said that much was said and that was everything was good, but there's no mention of building the capacity of the youth. And without that, things will not work out. But I think from the beginning, everyone talked about developing. They talk about education. You know, we got everyone on this call, either on this particular platform, have a master's and above doctorate degree. So we are actually most of the thing we're talking about is to make sure that our country develop and the youth capacity. If it's not developed, I mean, we're not going. We have not done anything. So during this discussion and all the panelists, everything that was talked about and discussed here, mainly we're going to is about building the capacity of our country. So I just want to put that there. But having said that, I think someone people are suggesting that we're going to meet again on the 26th of November. And but prior to that, we will meet, and I'm asking that every point that was stated based on education, acute sanitation issue, and all the different opportunities, building capacities, that we jot down the various opportunities that we can work with, and then when we come back on the 26th to for our test series, because there are a lot of questions that have not been answered, but a lot of resources. People are so grateful that the panel was very, 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 very detailed, and the discussion was so great. You all were so energized. It showed that we are here to make sure that we get a buy-in from the diaspora and people in Liberia, so that we can all work together. So for the next on the 26th, we're working towards bringing two Liberians from Liberia who are also doing very well to be on this particular discussion. So because of that, on the 26th, please put it on your calendar. But before we close, we got 5 more minutes. So what we're gonna do, and just a closing statement from everyone. So we'll start with Honorable Russell.
You are
Thank you.
muted.
Yep, thank you. Once again, thanks for the opportunity, and it's been great to be here with you all, and sharing your insight about how we can move Liberia forward and how we can try to improve our country, and organize and leverage the diaspora as best as we can. To really enjoy the conversation. And once again, Lucy, thanks for the opportunity. And Dr. Davis, I know you had asked me a question, so I'll just briefly answer what you'd asked. What I was saying is that currently in Liberia, the current administrative structure that we have, okay, we have the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs, and Tourism. What I'm recommending and what I have written about, I think a number of people too have spoken to this fact, is that in this day and age, with we in the information age, with the technology, every ministry and a corporation in Liberia has an information person, a public relation officer, or someone of that sort. The government does not need to have a Ministry of Information. Okay, that's a relic of the past. If you look at the structure of this government and many other governments around, they don't have Ministry of Information. So scrap that and turn it into the Ministry of Tourism, or a tourism bureau, something of that sort. But we need to focus more purposefully on improving and enhancing our tourism assets. I talk about the place in a refugee with this monument that was there since the 30s or 40s. It's out there. that the Liberian president and the French administrator met at that point. It's some meeting they had there, and there's a landmark there. How many of us know that? There are, I mean, we know about the big ones. We know about Patawi. We know about Blue Lagoon, and and all of the other places. But there are a lot of touristic assets in Edina, in Fortsville, in Kitmount, in many places around the country. We need to catalog these assets and promote them to the diaspora. And we need a government entity like a Ministry of Tourism in order to do that effectively. So that's part of what I was saying.
Thank you. That's good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. So we'll move quickly to Mr. Gullowo to, just a minute or less than that statement,
Yeah.
please.
So yeah, quickly, I think to help solve some of these issues, especially when we talk about foreign direct investment from the diaspora, the government should impress upon them to have a moratorium on natural resource flight, and also to put a cap on the importation of products that we can produce in Liberia. That way, it will empower local farmers, local manufacturers to be able to produce those goods and products that they can be able to make a living from. But if we importing everything, how do they make money? And the diaspora could also have opportunities to be able to work along and make money in that too. Like Ghana has a cap on what's imported. I think they have like 75. Last time I checked the list, it was 75. So we need to start working on that. Identify those things so we can make it on our own and make money out of it. Make millionaires in Liberia. Stop.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we'll go. Yeah, excellent. I mean, I don't know what to say. So Dr. Lloyd, the floor is yours for your closing statement.
Yeah, I just want to briefly say and thank the panelists, and also I'm happy to see my friend and brother Russell. I've not seen him for years, and we used to hang up in Cardwell. So good to see you. Yes, good to see you, my brother. I just want to say here that we have prospect for Liberia, although Liberia currently is in a very challenging situation, but there's hope for Liberia, and we are that hope for our nation, so we can begin to start doing what we need to do to change it. Also, concerning the issue of the separation when it comes to Concord country, we'll be reminded that a nation that forgets its history is a nation that is bound to failure. The history of Liberia is the history of Liberia. If we do not cling and cherish that history, we will never progress as a people. And that's one of the problems we have this time. So, in order to get the diaspora more involved, I just want to close to say the Liberian government should focus on privatization of the major services in Liberia. So when it comes to light, water, sanitation, and all that, privatize it, offer it to the diaspora to see what they can come in, and provide services on a privatization level for Liberia. That's what many of the countries who have a huge diaspora have done. They privatize the basic services. Also, when it comes to tourism, on what Russell stressed on, Liberia has very interesting historical site. Liberia, you got those who are founders of the Pan-African movement are buried in Liberia. Very important that these sites and the grave sites in other areas. The grave of Bob Gray down there going to EAW. Those are historical sites that can be developed. When I was in elementary school, we took a trip to Bob Gray. My school took a trip there. My class. The Bob Gray grave, all those sites, and they are not observable anymore. They have been demolished, or they have been they are not, no attention are being focused on them. We have historical sites that can attract tourism in Liberia. We begin to focus on that. So privatization of the tourism industry in Liberia is one thing that can be done. A very good suggestion that Brother Russell brought about. Also, the last thing I want to say is that restriction on trade. Liberian government should try to work on reducing the restriction on trade and also eradicating monopoly in Liberia. For example, rice importation is monopolized in Liberia. Certain other major consumer goods have a monopoly. So how can you have the diaspora Liberian with the money to come in, who have money to come in to invest because there are restrictions that are limited. So you need to open it up to open it to a competitive market that people can come in and trade. So in the process will become very, very conducive for Liberian people because you have competition. So therefore price will be very, very reasonable. So these are the things we need to look at, and we need to engage the Liberian government, start working with them so that they can see the value, in what we are talking about, the value of the potential of the diaspora, so that we can be able to propel the wheel of development in Liberia. And thank you all again for your very, very valuable contribution. I'm glad to
Yes.
be part of this.
Thank you so much. So we'll go straight to our own Dr. Caroline Davis, who will just give us her closing statement before we can leave. The floor is here, Dr.
Thank you,
Davis.
Lucy. I think we've on this forum we always have very rich conversation, and I believe that we can turn this into action, and we are doing that. Um, I want to thank all of the panelists that were on that are on. David, you are so knowledgeable, and thank you for doing the research that you did and just the willingness to share some of these information. Remember, I said we need to get away from our selfishness. When I was growing up in Liberia, and I think it still exists, when people know something, they don't want to pass that on. But we have to pass this on. We have to pass it on. There's a song that said pass it on, right? We got to pass on this knowledge to our children and their children and the next generation so that they are able to pass it on. So thank you, Councilman Russell. Thank you, David. Thank you, Reverend Lloyd, for all, the contribution that you all have made. Lucy, I don't know if you have done this, but I think behind the scene, if we want to contact one another, to converse with one another behind the scene, please, if you haven't done it, you can do that. Send us an email with everybody contact information, the different means that people can be contacted. You can put in my number. You have my number. You have my email. Let's do that. So if we want to, like David kept saying, if you want these things, you can ask me. If you want these things, you can ask me.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are only sharing that on the phone, and then in this forum, we have no other means of contacting each other,
Mm-hmm.
then, I hope we can be able to contact each other. In terms of the...
You can share my number too.
I would do that,
So I can reconnect with my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that. I would do that.
I think that's
Okay.
very important. Not just those that are here now. There were others that have been on. We can share all of that, But let's continue to. My final thing is let's continue to pray for our country. The country, Reverend Lord, talk about how can we change the profile and all of that. We can do it. We can do it. And I believe that we can do it. Let's pray for Liberia as we do this runoff, presidential runoff. Let's pray that God himself will choose for himself a leader that will lift Liberia up from where she is right now. Let's just continue to pray. Let's pray for our brothers and sisters that are home, and let's pray for those that are abroad. I think we are getting to see the bigger picture. And one thing, if you get to see the bigger picture, you can move beyond yourself for the sake of the bigger picture. And I believe that's what we're going to do as Liberians at home and abroad. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. We want to say thank you so much. We know that Liberian View, we always, when we discuss, we act, we practicalize everything that we do. Trust me. So we started discussing some investment. I'm going to share with all of you. I will share all your information, and I'm glad that you're saying it here. So when someone call me, they want to talk to David, I'm allowed to do that. I'm going to share those information so that people can be able to contact you. Having said that, we're going to be here on the 26th of November We want to say thank you so much to our listeners, our supporters. We want for you to share this information. We're hoping that presidential candidate Boaka will be able to watch this, even for Mr. Cummings, and even the current president, Mr. George Weah, and all the presidential candidates. Watch it, share it. This is for Liberia, and we will meet you all November 26th. Is going to be on a Sunday. It starts at 4:30. We're hoping to have someone for Liberia on the ground who is doing so well to also attend, and so that we can know the challenges. As we stated, after this whole thing, we're going to bring a proposal. We'll share with you all to get your buy-in in the diaspora, because not 100% can do it. 6% can get together and put documents together and share it and get buy-in and get the buy-in from Liberia. So this is what we'll be working on. We want to say, ask your questions, bring your ideas, questions that are in this chat that were not answered. We are hoping that on the 26th, we'll be able to do that. But for now, we say, continue to pray for Liberia. November 7th is coming. We hope that God will speak and God will lead. Thank you all so much for everything. It was wonderful, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, good
Have
night.
a blessed one, everybody.
Yeah,
Good night.
everyone,
bless
this
you
was
all.
great.
Good
Great.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Oh, good night. Let me see. So we'll come here and this. Then